Hello guys, it's Carly from CMG RC Racing. Today we're going to be assembling a diff. It's just a 1/8 diff out of my S-Works Nitro here. This car has only done one race meeting at Toowoomba, King of the Valley, so it's time that I do the diff oils. This car is brand new. I assembled it then raced it at Toowoomba. I always run on the belief that whenever you assemble a brand new car, you do the diffs straight after its first race day because, as you know, the diffs are metal and they bed in and they shave metal off the gears just like any motor car or motorcycle with brand new engine. You give it a service after, 1,000 Ks or whatever. This is pretty much the same with a radio controlled car diff. You empty the diff out and put new silicone fluid inside of it, and that will keep the diff healthy and it will prolong its life. As you can see on my napkin here, that was the colour of the oil. It was black after three qualifying one day, 3 qualifying the next, and 1 15-minute final. I apologise for the budgies, but they're just being opinionated. So I'm just going to show you how to reassemble one of these. They're pretty straightforward. When you do these, you always check your bearings 100%, because if they're crunchy, you can do one or two things. You can clean it out with one of those jewellery cleaners that emit ultrasonic vibrations, or you can take the seal off and they spray it out with a bit of brake clean and then replace the grease and or oil inside of the bearing, and that will prolong its life a little bit more. If you really want to, you can replace the bearings if they get a bit crunchy. If you can't get rid of the crunch, I highly recommend Plague bearings. They're quality Australian small business, Trevor Loki. He's amazing. I've been using Plague bearings for nearly a decade and I have not had one issue with his products. So today we're just going to reassemble this diff. What you do is you get your cup here, you slot your little bearing back on, then you put your drive shaft in like that, and you flip it over, and then you stick your little O-ring inside like so. You can push your little drive shaft down, it makes it a bit easier to insert. Push it down, as you can see there. Then you get your little shim here, you place it in so it's nice and flush over your O-ring. Make sure that O-ring is sitting down. You can use a little pick to push it down like that, or you can use needle nose pliers and push it down a little bit more. There we go. Now he's nice and seated. And then you get your little shaft here. I use needle nose pliers. A lot of people probably scream at me and say, oh no, don't do that, but this technique's been working for me for many years. I have not damaged any pins whatsoever in these diffs by doing it this way. So I know there's probably specific tools out there, but this is what works for me. So you just make sure you slip your little pin back in. There we go, just like that. Make sure it's sitting in there nice and flush, because you got to put your little planetary diff gear back in. You can see there. Sorry for the light, this is my first video and I haven't quite set up a studio yet. There we go, see a little bit better there. So you get your little planetary gear here, and make sure that it's roughly the same as the little pin in there, so when you slot it back in, it's not so bad. There we go. You can see that he's freely spinning. Nice and good like that. That's only half of the battle. So when you put these back in, you make sure when you put these little gears back in, the shims on the edge here are still on, because these little shims here, there we go, you just make sure they're still on. They space out the little spider gears inside the diff. And you just slot them back in here like that. Make sure that little slot there is pointing up, because it helps this guy's seat. And make sure that little slot there is facing down. You just slot him in just like that, and you can test him. Put your finger down like that and just spin it around like that. You can see that the gears are working as they should be. and you choose your diff oil of choice. Today we're going to be using 10,000 because I'm hoping to run this nitro in Maitland for the Raw Speed Challenge in August. It all depends on if I can find a bump box. So I usually use Quality Oil JTP, but at the moment I've only got Meteor Pro on hand. But we use what we have. So when we just pop it in like that, a little bit at a time. As you do that, you spin your little gears like that. And make sure the oil is all around. These bottles are a little bit cold. There we go, just top him up a little bit more. Spin your gears a bit. They will pop up, so you can use a little pick and spin him around like that. Make sure the oil's evenly distributed. Put a little bit more in. There we go, that should be enough. There we go, and then you just pop the lid back on. Make sure that the gasket is lined up and healthy and no leaks. So you just pop him in like that, and make sure the little holes inside the diff housing here are all lined up like that. Then you get your little screws here, sit them in like that. Then you get your 2mm and just start them. Don't do them all the way up. You put them in just like you would changing a motor car tyre or wheel on the side of the road, because you don't do it all up at once because it doesn't seat properly if you do. So you just do a little star pattern, do them up a little bit at a time, because that will help the diff seal up and that'll help the gasket seal. There we go, just like that. Go back down to this guy, down. You go here, across, and then like this. And you can feel the little gear here starting to seat onto the diff cup. Make sure they're nice and firm. Top this one and that one. Make sure those two are firm now. And you go across. And do him up. Make sure he's nice and firm. And do this guy up. Make sure he's nice and firm. And then you get your little shims and place them on. These shims just reduce the slop of the diff, because you know that moves in the car like this. So when you put it back into the car, it just reduces a bit more slop. But you can see that the gears go, they should be like this. One should go opposite to the other like that. And when you put your diff back in, always take note of the direction it came out. That is 100% of what you need to do, because if you put the diff in back the front, the car will just fight against itself and lock up. So you just put him back in the way it should be. I always like to take the whole bottom off here because it's just easier to seat the diff back in with the drive shafts here. So it can be a little bit of a pickle sometimes. So it sits back in like that. Again, sorry for the budgies. They're inside because it's cold. So these shims aren't the easiest things to deal with time to time, and time to time I do wrestle with them like I am now, because I'm just trying to make sure the camera captures what I can. So there you go, he's seated in there nice and flush. You see it's spinning like that, and it's up to you, but I do use this VRP honey grease because that helps friction on the gears inside the diff. So you just get a little dab and then just pop him on in there, and when you seal up the case, it will distribute around the gears. Alright guys, hopefully that was a little bit useful for you, and I hope that you get a little bit of information on how to build a diff out of that. Now I'm going to put the back end back on. Alright, thank you guys.